future and keeping the past alive are one and the same thing.
After one of the most ridiculous intros of all time, it's quite clear that Nintendo and Rare had vast changes in mind for the 1994 redesign of Donkey Kong. Using pre-rendered 3D graphics on a 16-bit console, the iconic DK was completely reimagined visually as well as in terms of gameplay. Donkey Kong Country wasn't about kidnapping girlfriends on I-beams. No, instead it followed the adventures of an ape and his backwoods family. Donkey Kong is devastated that his prized banana hoard has been stolen by a crocodilian pirate named King K. Rool. DK treks through Donkey Kong Island to retrieve his treasured bananas and to put a stop to King K. Rool and his gang of Kremling henchmen. Each area of the island is broken down into a series of levels a la Super Mario World. To advance onward, you'll have to jump, climb, rocket, and roll to the exit of each of the game's great variety of levels. Donkey Kong has a few special abilities to help defend himself against the Kremlings occupying DK Island. In addition to the standard platforming abilities of running and jumping, Donkey Kong can administer a rolling attack that sends enemies flying off screen. He can also slam his hands down in a powerful ground pound. By smashing barrels with the DK insignia, Diddy Kong, Donkey Kong's red-capped nephew, emerges. Diddy has a longer-ranged cartwheel attack at his disposal, as well as a noticeable speed advantage. But due to his small size, he can't take on the girthier enemies. That's where the game's buddy system comes into play. Pressing the A button switches between characters, whom can only be controlled at one time. The tag team ability allows the player to utilize each of the Kong's advantages accordingly. One of the key components of Donkey Kong Country is the heavy usage of barrels. Each level has a starred continue barrel that acts as a checkpoint. TNT barrels will explode, and then there are the standard fare barrels like the DK partner barrel, and a bare bones one used to hit enemies or break through walls. A steel drum scarcely pops up, but it's one you'll be glad to find. When you typically throw a barrel at a wall, it'll explode. Throw a steel drum at a wall, however, and it'll rebound back towards you, giving you a brief opportunity to go for a ride. Barrels aren't just limited to melee items. The apes can be sent airborne via barrel cannons as well. Sometimes they'll be hidden as a secret shortcut or a bonus level, and other times they function as the level's apparatus for completion. Barrel cannons with white explosion designs indicate instantaneous firing, whereas plain barrel cannons give you control over when they fire. Occasionally the barrels move, shift position, or have both types mixed together, making the trajectory necessitating some careful thought. Rubber bouncy tires make an appearance in a handful of levels, but their function and importance differs in each level. In some instances, the entire layout is built around them. Late in the game, there's one where you must constantly refuel a mechanical platform. To reach a fuel tank, you'll roll a tire off a catwalk onto the moving machine and bounce on the tire. These sort of levels can be tricky, but nothing is more daunting than the minecart stages. Quick reflexes and trial and error is the only way to reach the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. In contrast, the game's area-ending boss battles are mostly a piece of cake. The bosses are all giant forms of enemies you've barreled through countless times prior. For the giant bee, it's as simple as grabbing a barrel and letting him fly into it, and then running like hell when he turns red. Defeat him and an oversized banana will drop to the floor, causing the Kongs to celebrate and a new part of DK Island to be accessible. As you progress up the island, you'll dive deep into several different bodies of water. These subaquatic sections are abundant with pearl-shooting clams, sharks, and other unkind sea life. Luckily, there is one fish that's on your side, Unguard the Swordfish. Like the frog suit in Mario Bros. 3, Unguard will streamline swimming in the game. With a mighty thrust forward, his razor-sharp bill gives you a much-needed edge underwater. While ordinarily each Kong can only be hit once, when you're riding on an animal buddy, they take infinite hit points, so long as you can recatch them. Terrene animal buddies can be freed from their captive boxes in the same manner. The most popular of the bunch is probably Rambi the Rhino, a rugged rhinoceros that plows through enemies with his horn. In a different light, Squawks the Parrot can't be ridden at all. Instead, he holds a flashlight to illuminate dark caverns. A bird you can ride on is Espresso, a tennis shoe wearing ostrich. He's the fastest animal buddy in the game, but it's at the cost of being unable to jump on enemies, making him completely defenseless. Being an ostrich, Espresso is limited to fluttering, and at his incredible speed, he's just too much of a handful to control effectually. The last animal buddy in the game is often hidden in one way or another, Winky the frog. What Winky lacks in speed, he brings in leaping prowess. Using him to reach otherwise inaccessible areas or even knock off bees with a belly flop makes this frog fun to play as. There is a way to actually become Winky and the other animal buddies. By finding 3 golden statues corresponding with the same animal, you can enter a bonus stage to gain extra lives. Each animal stage is different but shares the same goal. Find as many animal trinkets as possible before time runs out. Finding the gigantic animal statue pays out big in extra lives. Donkey Kong Country is filled to the barrel's brim with bonuses. The most common bonus is achieved by collecting all 4 letters K-O-N-G to gain an extra life in each level. You'll routinely find hidden bonuses by breaking a hole into a secret wall. In one instance, to win the circular letter game, you must spell out the word rare correctly. In another, you play a matching game to receive the correlative item. That's all just scratching the surface of what's offered in the great variety of bonus areas. Like in the minecart stages, sharp reflexes are necessary to win, because the Kongs, they hate losing. When speaking of Donkey Kong Country, the gorilla in the room is the jaw-dropping visual effects. A raging thunderstorm with lightning that later permeates into sunrise was something you just didn't think possible on the SNES. Through blizzard or thunderstorm, there are all sorts of layering effects that to this very day look impressive. A one-off ice cave is simply stunning with its glistening essence in the background and pseudo 3D diamonds in the foreground. Likewise, the smooth animation of their pre-rendered 3D models is equally as impressive. Despite being nearly 20 years old already, the game's shadowy and vibrant art style, along with the fluid animation, have preserved its feel over time. The same compliments can be said for the atmospheric music, namely the beauty of aquatic ambience. Donkey Kong Country's gameplay won't exactly draw you in, as by the end the level themes and gameplay grow a tad repetitive, but when you put the entire package together, the short experience you'll have will be very much worth the time invested. Being that Terminator 1 to the sequel's Terminator 2 isn't half bad. Plus, if you have a nearby friend, you can either partner up or compete against one another for even more fun. And fun is what Donkey Kong Country is all about.